Cysco and I walk on a different conservation trail just about every morning. Sometimes it's out in the moors. Other days I'm in a beach dune mood, and once in a while I like to explore the pine forests and fields along Hummet Pond. We pretty much keep to the trails, but Cysco likes chasing rabbits and deer and following their scents all through the brush and fields. I sometimes forget there's a leash law on Nantucket. Being an outdoor lover, I work in my garden almost every afternoon. I'm usually down on my knees, weeding, pruning, and harvesting. What we didn't realize was that on each one of these hikes, or in my garden, or with Cysco and Hannah playing in the yard, we were picking up tiny hitchhikers clinging to our legs, feet, hands, and arms, carrying potentially life-threatening diseases. These little guys are the culprits. Black-legged ticks, or often called deer ticks. Smaller and darker than the brown ticks we usually find on Cysco. Actually, we found out that it's not the tick itself, but the diseases it carries in its blood that we need to worry about.
On Nantucket, the primary ones we worry about are four diseases. Lyme disease, which is numerically the largest number, somewhere between, depending on who you believe, somewhere between 250 and 300 cases a year. Next would be Babesia, which typically runs 35 to 50 cases a year. Then Anaplasma, which people may recall was also called Ehrlichia, and probably 10 cases a year. And then the new one, which is Borrelia miyamotoi, which we had 10 clinical cases last year. Lyme disease in its earliest stages is typically a rash. This may be accompanied by a flu-like illness. Now, on Nantucket, there's no such thing as a summer flu, so most often people that are coming in with these flu-like illnesses very frequently have Lyme disease. Lyme disease, as I've mentioned, can be extremely uncomfortable. The other three diseases can be even worse. And what is particularly scary on Nantucket is the combination. I like to say you can have 1, 2, 3, and now 4. I haven't had somebody with all 4, but I have had a number of people with 3. And so you have to be alert in thinking about these diseases. Deer ticks are the agents of transmission of these diseases. The deer ticks acquire these diseases from feeding on the white-footed mouse, the deer mouse. And there's a very complex relationship between the ticks, the mice, and the white-tailed deer. The mice are primarily all infected, and the ticks pick up the disease from them. The ticks require a final blood meal, over 95% of them, from a white-tailed deer. If we control the deer herd, we can reduce the numbers of infected ticks. The magic number may be somewhere around 15 per square mile, and currently we're running about 50 per square mile.
You might think, geez, how can you walk and work outdoors knowing all that? Dr. Lepre and other deer tick experts have told us that deer ticks prefer shadier places, out of direct sunlight. These include cool, moist conditions offered by tall grass and thick brush, like in the moors, anywhere there's dead and decomposing leaves and other plant material, and even dense beach grass. They also love the edges of yards under privet hedges, wooded areas or roadsides. Residential properties connected to deer-inhabited woods can be especially vulnerable. Smart walkers and gardeners stay off the ground and steer clear of stacks of wood and fallen trees when they can. They walk in the middle of well-traveled trails and avoid contact with brush and tall grass. Before we head out on a walk, we tuck our pant legs into our socks and spray our boots and legs with a bug spray that contains DEET. I also found that you could spray clothes or buy clothes with permethrin, an insecticide that kills the ticks. And when I come home, I check my clothes inside and out and throw them in the dryer for 10 minutes to kill the ticks.
Well, I think finding a deer tick on you is always a scary proposition, but you have to remember a tick has to be on you for 24 to 30 hours to transmit one of these diseases. And so the most important thing is prevention. It's the cheapest thing, it's the thing people are least apt to use. tuck your pants into your socks. Make sure that you're wearing light colored clothes so you can see the ticks, and avoid ticky areas. When I say ticky areas, look at the edge of your property. Think of it like a golf course. If you stay in the fairway, you don't have to worry. But if you start getting into the rough, that's when you're going to pick up ticks. The important thing is get the tick off of you. Well, I think the obvious places are you check under your arms, you check down in your groin, you check your legs, and then you make sure that you have a good friend or a significant other, because you need somebody to look at your back and to look in the nether regions on your back, because ticks, that's where the ticks are going to be.
Now that I know where deer ticks are, I know I can protect myself and my family from them and the diseases they carry. But what about Cysco? Dogs are just as vulnerable to Lyme disease and other tick-borne diseases as we are. But as we all know, our four-legged friends are quite oblivious to deer ticks and tend to go where they want if not kept indoors, inside a fence, or on a leash. Pets, both cats and dogs, are much more likely to pick up ticks and pass them on to us. Before you let your cat or dog into the house, or the car for that matter, look behind their ears, on their belly, and around their necks. The good news for Cysco is that there's a Lyme disease vaccine for him that lasts up to a year, and companies, including Advantix and Frontline, make topical repellents that I can apply to Cysco once a month. You can ask your vet for recommendations. If you spend a lot of time in your yard, like we do, you may be wondering how you and your pets can safely enjoy the great outdoors. Believe me, it's not as bad as it sounds. With a few simple changes to your routine and some preventive measures, you can reclaim your land from mice, deer, and deer ticks. Limit your watering, since excess water on grass will increase the humidity and promote a more favorable habitat for ticks. And keep your grass short. We clean up dead leaves, brush, wood piles, so we reduce areas where mice could live. We also use Daminix tick tubes. These are biodegradable cardboard tubes that contain cotton balls treated with the insecticide permethrin. We place them in our flower beds, under the hedges, and around the edges of our property. White-footed mice gather the cotton balls from the tubes to pad their nests, and the deer ticks attached to the mice die on contact with the permethrin. As an extra precaution, since deer are essentially four-legged carpools for hungry deer ticks that range all over Nantucket, we're considering putting up a fence high enough to keep deer out of our yard and gardens. I'm confident that we're protected against deer ticks, and I'm not going to let them keep us from enjoying the extraordinary open space Nantucket has to offer.